right, everybody, welcome to the Route Consultant Weekly Webinar. If you're here for the first time, my name's Josh Gregory. I am the Vice President of Operations here at Route Consultant. If you don't know who we are, our team ran hundreds of routes across the country in both pickup and delivery and line haul. And today we're here to do a couple of things. One, if you're new to this space, if you're trying to figure out what all of this FedEx world means, we want this to be a place where you can come, learn a little bit about the topic, and also ask any questions that you have and really help decide if this is the right space for you or not. And for all of you who've been in the industry for years, we still want this to be a place where as new things happen, as FedEx rolls things out, as the things in the macro economy change, we want to be here to talk about it and to give advice and to answer questions to the best of our ability, and really make sure that this is always a place everybody can come together and learn. So before I go too much farther, I do have a quick disclaimer that I have to read. So Route Consultant is not endorsed by and is not recommended by Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Route Consultant is not sponsored by, is not approved by, is not associated with, and has no connection whatsoever with Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Again, for everyone who's here every week, welcome back. And we always, just so you know the format of today, if you're new, we will go over some content, some things that we want to talk about this week. Then I'll go over any new listings, any new events that we have coming up. And then after that, we will open it up for pure Q&A. So you can ask questions about anything that we talk about today or just anything about the industry as a whole. I ask if you do have those questions, there's a little Q&A button at the bottom of the window. Click it and you can type those questions there and then we'll get to them. You can type those in at any time. It'll come through. And then once we get to the Q&A at the end of the webinar, I'll make sure to address those and we'll walk through them. So for today, if you've been here, if you've heard us talk about line haul, one of the things we talk about a lot is how essential recruiting is to the success of your business in this industry. But we don't always talk enough about how important and essential benefits can be to help create a business where your drivers actually want to stay for years. And then you don't have to spend as much time recruiting, as much energy on recruiting. And so we're going to talk a little bit through that strategy there, the right kinds of benefits, how it can impact your business. And of course, we have Alex Froome on here to give his insights and kind of walk us through that journey. So Alex, I see you there. Why don't you say hello and we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. Looking forward to it.
Perfect. All right. So walk us through, take us through this benefit journey, Alex.
Okay, so if you've been here with me for the last, I guess we've been doing this almost for a year now, right?
Yeah.
A little bit more than a year. There's three things that I always focus on, and then I call them, and realistically, there's four pillars that you have to look at your business. We are evaluated by FedEx on our service, our safety, and our availability. And then you have to look at everything through a lens of your financial responsibility. What is it, your financial repercussions? What is your ROI or your ROE going to be? Your return on equity or your return on your investment? So why is benefits so important to your business? Well, one is it reduces your turnover. Why is that important? Well, if you reduce your turnover, that means that you don't have to go out and recruit. Recruiting can cost around anywhere from about $500 to $1,500 a week on Indeed or whatever job board that you want to use, or if you're using a third-party vendor like Bright Flag. So you're looking at somewhere, you're looking at a lot of money there. And then two, you don't have a driver in that seat. So if it's on a solo run, the average solo run does 2,400 miles a week. It generates, $4,800 a week in revenue. So if you don't have that, so you've just lost, say, $4,800 in revenue, and then on top of that, you're spending $500 at a minimum on recruiting. You're charging yourself, you're costing your business, call it $5,500 a week, by having that turnover occur. So that's why it's much more important for you to actually reward your good drivers and treat them well so they don't have the desire to leave. Now, a lot of contractors get into this mistake. A lot of brand new contractors will say, you know what, I need to hire somebody. I'm gonna go find out what Josh is offering his drivers, and I'm gonna offer them a penny more. Well, newsflash, that gets you drivers who are going to look. It gets you one type of driver, drivers who want to jump ship at the next sign of a higher penny. I will be honest with you. I have very low turnover. I have drivers that have been with me for over 7 years. I have 50% of my drivers have been with me for more than 5 years. I do not pay top dollar. I am not the highest pay. In fact, I'm significantly lower than a lot of other contractors in my terminals. However, I offer really good benefits. I offer dental, healthcare, vision, short-term disability, life insurance. I offer 401k with a company match, and all those as a package are hooks that I'm trying to put into my drivers so they don't want to leave. Okay. You convince your driver to do healthcare with you. You convince your driver to do dental or vision. You offer short-term disability, which a lot of contractors don't offer. You offer life insurance or a 401k with a match. These are all things that are putting hooks into your drivers that prevent them or kind of discourage them from wanting to leave. The more benefits that you hook them into, the harder it is for them to leave. Once they get used to your healthcare, they're going to be like, you know what? Some other plan is kind of scary. I got to learn a whole new process. I don't know if I can. What about my prescription drugs? Are they going to be able to port over? So those are the kind of questions that they're going through their mind. If you have short-term disability, that's not something that a lot of guys offer, and it's really valuable. For example, I had a driver last year who had to spend 6 weeks out because he had prostate cancer. So he went in, went in, got prostate surgery, and then he was able to use his short-term disability insurance to cover his pay for 6 weeks, and he came back. I mean, he's been raving about it to all my other drivers and to all the other contract drivers in the terminal. I have people who come up to me and say, "Hey, I hear you treat your drivers really well. Are you looking to hire?" I turn guys away constantly. I don't need, I run a decent size operation and I have guys who want to come work for me instead of me chasing them down. Um, the 401k with the company match. The match is really cool. Okay. So you get a driver who comes in and I offer a 3% match. So for every 1% they put away into their 401k, I put in a 0.5% up to a total of 7%. Okay, so at that 7%, I'm matching 3%. And it's really attractive. My drivers get really excited once they started realizing, hey, I'm putting in 10,000 and my owner's putting 3,000 in, and that if I stay for 2 years, that money is mine. So that's the kicker. Once they understand that they have to stay with me for 2 years, that becomes meaningful money. And then, the stock market the last couple of years has done really well. And so they've seen those balances grow. I have drivers who have retirement accounts now over $100,000 because they've been consistently putting money into their 401k, and then I've been matching it, and then the market has grown the last 2 years. So these are all little tools of the trade that you can use to convince your drivers not to leave, because the last thing you want is to have an empty seat and an unused tractor that's not rolling down the road, because that is now a sunk cost on your balance sheet that's not generating any revenue. And that's the biggest thing. At the end of the day, you have to look at your policies and procedures in your company to generate and maximize the most revenue possible. And minimizing your turnover is the number one way to maximize your revenue.
Yeah, and when we talk about benefits in the FedEx space, if we look at the P&D side, it's still important, but I think the feast or famine model in Linehaul is just emphasizes it even more. Exactly what you talked through. When you're not running, you're not making money. P&D, you still got service charges. There's still ways that you make money when your trucks are down or when a driver's out. But if you don't have a butt in a seat, that vehicle's not generating anything. And so I do think that people see the cost of a benefit and don't do the calculation like you just walked through of you really need to think through the cost of recruiting and the cost of a driver being out of a seat when you're kind of doing apples to apples comparisons of what benefits, cost in the front end, but the value that it brings very regularly offsets or overcompensates for the cost to buy them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that people don't ever really think about is how much is the value of having a safe driver in that seat. So, for example, about a month ago, I got rid of a team. And people would be like looking at me and like, you fired a team? We're like, what were you thinking? I'm like, yeah, they just weren't unsafe. Like I caught them multiple times using their handheld device on the road. I explained to them the policy. I gave them remedial training. They didn't want to fix themselves, so I just got rid of them. They were too much of a liability to me. Luckily for me, I happened to have other teams in the mix that I could hire in, and I actually had a team who approached me and said, "Hey, we'd love to come back to work with you. We're we left for other reasons. We decided to get married, and then my husband had some financial issues, but now we're ready to come back. Do you have a spot for us? I was like, yeah, I'd love to have you guys back. So I brought them back on, got rid of a non-performing team. And the safety thing is another thing. You want to reward your safe drivers. So have a good bonus program that rewards them for being safe. Because let me tell you, safety is the number one thing that FedEx evaluates you on. You're not going to get awarded a growth opportunity. You're not going to win a bid for a CGO if you're not tier 4 or above. If you're tier 3, tier 2, well, if you're tier 2 or tier 1, you're not even eligible to grow. But if you're tier 3, there's enough contractors that have figured out how to get themselves to tier 4, and they're going to be the ones getting those growth opportunities as opposed to you. It's not like it was back in the day where we had the ODOT number and tier 3 was it was the gold standard because it was so hard to go through a run without getting a CSA violation. It's a different story now. So you want to reward those safe drivers and make sure that they stay with you and they don't have any desire to leave to another contractor. And I'll tell you, I mean, what you see a lot of times with a lot of contractors is that they don't think about they think that drivers are a dime a dozen and not really thinking about how expensive it is to do that recruiting. And that's a real drag on your operation when you have a truck that's sitting and you're not running. Not only you're not generating revenue, you have a truck that's unused. It's developing maintenance issues because a truck that's sitting is a truck that's leaking. And then three, on top of that, you're starting to take declines and it's hurting your availability. And it might start hurting your service too if FedEx is not able to cover your run.
Yeah, I think more than ever, safety, in particular in line haul, is a revenue generating opportunity because, like you said, one, it's protecting you from the contractual impact of poor safety. But if you want to grow, if you want to be a bigger business, you have to prioritize safety. And I think new people coming in need to hear it, but there are, like just like you said, there's still contractors who think that as long as they maintain tier 3, that's all they need to do to grow, and you lose out in a lot of conversations in bidding and acquiring new runs to those who are tier 4, or I say also the ones who are tier 5, but there's like 3 of them.
You know what? It's kind of crazy. Like I thought it was impossible for a contractor to get to tier 5 who's been in the business for over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually speaking to one last week who's tier 5. He's got
Wow.
6 runs.
Okay.
So he's, bigger than 3 tractors, which I thought was the other limiting factor. But he's
Yeah.
somehow I mean, now don't get me wrong. He started off 3 years ago. He's got 6 runs now. He immediately went tier 2. He
Okay.
just had a
Yeah.
catastrophic event. Like he went from being like a brand new tractor, tier 5. I'm really good. 6 months in, he's tier 2, and then a year later, like I said, it took him. He briefly went down to tier 1, started scraping himself up, got back to tier 3, bounced down to tier 2, and then finally fixed himself, and now he's tier 5.
That's
So,
really impressive.
knock on wood, he stays that way. But
Yeah.
it was pretty impressive, like hearing his story about how he managed to right his ship and what he's done to. Now obviously he's a much more hands-on owner. He doesn't have a manager. He's a small operation, so he goes into the yard every day and he watches his drivers do their pre-trip inspections and their post-trip inspections. So that's a different story, but he's really drilled down into it. He does a lot of hands-on coaching, so it's been pretty impressive watching him create a tier 5 culture in his business. But it's important. He just got offered 3 runs in another hub area.
Yeah.
So, it happens.
Yeah.
So, being tier 4, being tier 5 is how you grow your business organically. And that's another way that you start adding to your bottom line.
Yeah. So I think an interesting question, Alex, did you start with the same benefit program that you have now, or has that
No,
evolved?
every year I add to it. I think the first thing I offered was just the 401k, and that was just for myself. I looked at it as a way. I really when I first got into the business, I was like, you know what? I didn't know any better. I was a small business owner. I think I started off with 4 trucks and 6 drivers. I had 2 solos and 2 teams. Um, so I offered a 401k program, and that was it. And it was more for myself so that I could, shelter more income away from the Uncle
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah.
And then when I grew, right before the pandemic, I grew up to from 4 trucks to 13 trucks. At that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe, I mean, I needed healthcare for myself and my family. And again, I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is what I would want. And then I offered it out to all my drivers as well. Um, and from there, I've just kind of like added things, listened to my drivers. As I grew, I got an HR manager. And so she does surveys of my drivers. So it was my drivers coming back to me asking for short-term disability. It was my drivers coming back to me asking for life insurance. Some of the other ancillary things that you don't see, like I provide my drivers with jackets, which I'm really excited about. They're big, bright yellow, ANSI yellow jackets that have the reflective material on them. But you know what across the back they say? They say Alpha Kilo. And my drivers I mean, they take some crazy poses in these jackets. Um, I actually had a crew of them like get together outside of dispatch, like they were like Run DMC or something like that. So we just, weird things like that. I give out a driver of the year award and a team of the year award. I really encourage all my drivers to go to the truck driving championship.
Mm.
It's you know what? It's a benefit that FedEx actually pays for. Highly recommended. It's what I have found by my drivers studying up and competing in the truck driver championships, they've become safer drivers themselves. And then on top of that, they tell stories about how great of an experience it is, and so that they get more drivers who want to go to it. And now everybody's competing, everybody's studying, and they're all excited to go. And it's a great experience. FedEx will pay for the hotel room, and they'll give meals to your drivers for the weekend. And then they compensate you for not driving that week.
Oh wow. I didn't.
So FedEx will
I knew they
cover
do
you.
hotels, but I didn't know about the food or
Yeah,
the.
so FedEx will give your drivers per diem for food. They'll cover the hotel room and they'll pay you as a contractor, not the full value of the run that they're recovering, but they pay you a meaningful amount of money so you can pay your drivers. So it's great. So I mean, last year I took 12 drivers to the Czech driving championship. This year I'm trying to get to 30, and FedEx is like doesn't say anything to me. Like they'll be like, "Hey, how many drivers you got today?" I'm like, "I have 5." Wait, you have 5 out of your 24?
Yeah.
Where are they all? At the truck driving championships. They don't say a thing. They're all excited about it. I mean, it's crazy how excited FedEx gets that I send so many drivers. You know,
I mean, it's
Highly
great.
recommended. I mean, I get a lot of kudos from senior management because also the other thing is that it's a big deal to John Smith.
Mm.
So he really cares about it and he tries to go to as many truck driving championships as possible. So it's a great way for your BCs to interact with senior leadership. If you go, I mean, they will not pay for your hotel room. You actually have to be a truck driver and you have to be competing to get a hotel room. So you'll have to pay for yourself. But it's a great opportunity for you to interact with like the district and the regional managers because they all show up to these events as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a great one. And the jackets too. That used to be something. It's so funny how impactful, like what monetary wise is like not a huge cost for you to give these little types of gifts, but we'd experienced the exact same thing where the little sweaters and jackets and stuff that we'd give them for their cars that they just it felt to us like from a monetary perspective not a lot, but man, that's the stuff they take pictures of that they tell everybody about that everybody in the terminal sees. It can have an extremely outsized impact is what I'd say compared to the cost.
I mean, the crazy one is I do steaks every year after peak. So I've told you this story before.
Yeah.
I buy $70 worth of steaks for all my drivers. So each driver gets $70 worth of T-bones and ribeyes. The drivers take so many pictures of them cooking up their steaks in the middle of winter. First of all, it's the middle of winter when I give them the
Yeah.
steaks. So they get these boxes and they're come from they actually come from a FedEx customer. So I know the contractor who actually goes into this place in Nebraska and picks up the beef. So they come in and he always knows when my shipment is because the lady that he does the spot pickup for always tells tells him that
Yeah.
this is for one of your friends.
Oh, that's funny.
So I buy it, so I pick it up, and they deliver it to all my drivers, and my drivers are just ecstatic. I get pictures of, steak and potatoes, steak and rice. In the South for my Southern drivers, that's like okra and asparagus and green beans. I mean, they absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's just like the little thing. He's like, yeah, me, my son, and my wife, I grilled them out on Sunday night and we had a dinner outside. I'm like, it's 30 degrees. What are you doing? He's like,
Uh,
yeah, but it's a little bit of summer. I'm like, okay, more power to you.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, so I think I hope everybody can just kind of see that one, I think sometimes people think about benefits as a really two-dimensional thing that, it's only a couple of options and you just check the boxes and you do it because the other guy's doing the same thing and you're just trying to check recruiting boxes. To a certain extent, there are minimum things you kind of need to have to stay in the game, but more importantly, it really helps drivers be sticky and stay for longer. It's harder for them to leave. They like you more, ultimately that just brings your recruiting costs down significantly. And I do you know like do you just use a bunch of different benefit providers? Like what do
No,
you?
so I mean, um, I mean, you can go to Josh or you can reach out to me. I actually have a health insurance broker who helps me craft my plan, and helps me keep my costs. And we structure something, and they actually help me with the onboarding and the education, which are a big deal. My 401k is currently through my payroll provider, ADP. You can get one through Paychecks. Fidelity actually has a quite exceptional small business 401k program. I would highly recommend if you don't have a 401k, and you're not using either Paychex or Gusto or ADP, to reach out to Fidelity. They've said that they have I mean, it's the gold standard. I think they have something like 47 million small business 401k programs in their network. That's what they don't do big plans. They do I mean, I mean, they will do big plans. I mean, they'll do GE or GM or whatever, but their real focus is on small business. So definitely reach out to Fidelity. So that's where I do my 401k, my healthcare. I use a couple different third-party vendors to do my jackets. Um, there's one called Triple Crown Connect, I think, who does they'll do silk screening of like the jackets, and they provide all the safety gear. So they do actually my safety vests, which I actually have right here. So all my drivers
Oh,
get
nice.
a
Yeah.
Kilo Logistics safety vest. They get that. They get jackets from me. Last year I did hoodies. I've done rain slickers. This year they've requested zip up hoodies. They say that pullover hoodies and quarter zips are no longer the in thing, and they all want zip up hoodies. So this year we'll be doing zip up hoodies.
Yeah.
We've done bomber jackets. We've done
Oh, cool.
parkas.
Yeah.
I've done backpacks one year. We do hats. So this is one of the hats I've done. There's another one somewhere in my office, but this is one of the hats I've done. One of my drivers came to me and asked me if I'd be if he could design a hat for me. And I said sure, and he designed a hat with a leather badge on it. So
Cool.
we handed out those to all the drivers. So
Yeah.
um,
More power to you. Yeah. You Design
so
away. Yeah.
yeah, I
Right.
mean, you gotta work on it. You want your culture to be what you want to make of it, but you want to keep it fun and light. I mean, some people do parties. What I find with truck drivers is it's a long day. They're usually up at 6 in the morning. They're home at 6 p.m. at night. They don't want to go to a party or a dinner. They want to spend time with their family at that point, but they do appreciate, the little things like a drink carrier. They appreciate gloves. Um, like lunch boxes, like the coolers. A lot of them like that because a lot of them don't want to buy food out on the road, so they'll bring their lunch with them. So getting them like those padded lunch boxes that keep things cool, they really like. Just talk to your drivers. The more conversations you have with your drivers, and you kind of bring up, hey, I'm thinking about doing jackets for the drivers. What kind of jacket do you like? Or talk to your managers. I mean, they'll have a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I'm actually coming up to the point right now where I'm going to have a couple drivers hit their 10-year anniversary with me.
Wow.
So I'm trying to figure out, like, do I splurge and get them a watch? Like, what am I
Yeah.
doing?
What's
You know?
what's the 10-year value?
Yeah.
Because
So,
get everybody to stay 10 years. Yeah, it's like
yeah, it's kind of crazy. I have quite a few actually. So, I have 12 drivers who've been with me for almost 10 years now. So I'm thinking Garmin does a trucking watch.
oh,
And so I'm thinking about seeing if I could do a Garmin watch with a like maybe just something maybe my colors on the watch band,
oh, cool.
or maybe on the bezel
Yeah.
somehow, and then giving them out to them.
That's, I
Uh,
mean, that's
it's a watch
smart.
that kind of reminds them to get up and actually walk around rock around the truck.
Oh, okay.
So that's the kind of
That's
cool thing about
cool
the
too.
Garmin
Yeah.
watch. So, for me, my own personal benefit, actually, if I can convince my drivers to walk 30 minutes a day, it actually has a meaningful difference in their healthcare.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, benefits all around then.
Yeah.
And Alex said it, but if you're looking for any kind of recommendations or connections, we're always happy to. He mentioned Fidelity. We used human interest for 401ks, so we often point to. And then as far as healthcare goes, we've always recommended Realm Health, and it's one we can always connect you with. They're actually one of the largest. I think they are the largest benefit provider in the FedEx space now across P&D and
Yeah.
Linehaul, and have every version of those different kinds of healthcare and short-term disability, all that you could ever ask for. So there's a whole spectrum of people, but like if you're looking for who we've used, who we can connect you to, just reach out. We can get you right to them. I actually think Brett might have put something in the chat to reach out to Realm too.
I will say the one thing that you want to do, and it's the difference between P&D and line haul, is P&D you get a lot of churn, so you generally offer a cheaper healthcare model. For line haul, you want to offer something that's a little bit more robust because you're going to get a lot of drivers that you want something that's going to help your drivers change their habits. Because what you get with a lot of is a P&D, it's actually it's a dangerous job because they're jumping out of the truck and running up to the steps and dropping something off and running back in. But it's also a healthy, you put
Very
somebody
physical.
into P&D, they're going to lose 30 pounds in that first month.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You think just from the front steps to the curb, they do it 150 times and they'll run 10 miles that day. And they won't even realize that they're doing it. Think about how much, they lose a ton of weight. Line haul's a different story. You're sitting in a cab for 10, 11 hours a day. Um, anybody knows what it's like. You're driving, you're drinking caffeine all
Yep.
day long, which is not healthy for you, and you're
Fast food,
snacking.
fast food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're eating fast food. So you really need to come up with a healthcare provider or benefits provider that's going to encourage your drivers to develop healthy habits. So, like, we encourage our drivers to walk 30 minutes a day. We give incentives for our drivers to actually take their 30-minute rest break and walk 15 minutes of it. So there's things that we're trying to do to get our drivers to have better habits.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, I think that covers everything from the benefits perspective. I'm going to go through the new listings this week and the upcoming events. We'll get to open Q&A in just a second. So I see a few questions already in there, but as I'm talking, this is a great time to type away and type your questions in, and we'll get to it in just a second. So new listings this week. First one, we have two listings that are FedEx P&D. So we got one out of Michigan. It's 9 routes at 995,000, 12 employees, 13 trucks, and a manager, and assumable truck data as well, if that's something you're looking for. The next one is out of Maryland. It is 12 P&D routes at 1.4 million. 15 employees, 19 trucks, and 2 managers. So low mileage operation with some extra management as well. So those are the 2 for P&D this week, either in Michigan or Maryland. The next 2 we have next 3 are Amazon. So we've got one out of Texas, 50 to 60 routes on average at $950,000. 109 employees, 56 trucks, 3 managers. You'll hear the stats on Amazon is a higher employee count, higher manager count than what you see in the FedEx space. Next one's out of Florida. It's 35 to 40 routes at just over $1 million with 108 employees, 48 trucks, and 5 managers. Um, and the last one is out of California. So 22 to 24 routes on average at $1 million, 39 employees, 27 trucks, and 2 managers. So we got California, Florida, and Texas for Amazon this week. And then the last two are two bread listings. We've got one out in South Carolina, a route with flowers at $221,000. And then we've got another one in Tennessee, another route at $92,000. So South Carolina and Tennessee for bread, California, Florida, and Texas for Amazon, and then Maryland and Michigan for P&D. Two upcoming events, just to make sure you're aware. If you're in the Florida area, we'll be there on March 11th. So 2 weeks from now, next Tuesday, 2 weeks from now. Free happy hour, completely free to attend. There will be vendors. Our team will be there, and you can meet with other contractors in the area or meet with just our team. It's a free to attend, free food, free drink. And then last reminder, coming up in the end of March, where is our big route consultant roadshow exclusively focused on Linehaul. It's out in Houston, Texas on March 28th. And so Alex will be there, I'll be there. There'll be a full day of speakers and vendors networking. Again, completely free to attend. We'll give you the food, the drink, and the education. Hopefully we'll see you out there in Houston in about a month. So that is it for new events. So let's jump into the Q&A. First one for Michael. I don't know if this is a number that you target or think about, Alex, but do you try to think about how much you spend on your benefits at a per driver level? Is there any kind of...
No, I look at it on a per mile basis. I mean, we've talked about this in the past. So I break everything down on a per mile basis. So I have idea of like how many cents per mile am I spending on my benefits in total. So if you think about it, like your safety bonus should be somewhere between 3 and 4 cents a mile. Your total benefits package should be less than 10 cents per mile. So if you're paying your driver 60 cents, then you look at your benefits as an additional 10 cents, and that captures in, a total of 70 cents per mile that you're paying in payroll benefits and then your taxes are different. That's another, you have to worry about workers' comp and your payroll taxes. Um, but I mean, so it does add up, but I mean, you don't want to spend any more than about 10 cents per mile. Or if you really think about it, about 5% of your 5% of your expenses should go to your benefits in total. If you look at a good, strong, there's a lot of manuals out there that talk about the percentages of what your business should be. And the max really should be about 5% goes to your benefits. 4%, you don't want to spend more than 4%, say, on management costs. So, I mean, if you get any good small business owner self-help book or like was it the dummies, owning a small business for dummies or something like that, they'll talk about the same kind of thing. So
Yeah.
think about it in that kind of way.
And I think it's important just to remind people one of the best ways you can think through the financials of the line haul business is at a per mile rate. And if you can reduce a lot of things to a per mile basis because it's how FedEx pays you, then it's a way to really accurately track actually how much money's going in and out.
Yeah. I mean, some guys will want to do it on a percentage basis. I find that to be a little bit more challenging. I mean, you can, but then you have to decide if you're going to do it as a net or as a gross. And what I mean by that is that are you going to add in the fuel or are you going to take out the fuel? So, I mean, so you can look at it either way. Otherwise, I think it's just simpler to just talk about it on a cents per mile basis, and then you don't have to worry about what your fuel is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, this one's here from John. So let's both kind of just give our thoughts on it. So he's been trying to get into the line haul space for a couple of months and hasn't seen a ton of new listings come available. Why do we see fewer listings come live in the line haul space?
Okay, so here's a couple things. New Jersey area, you're looking at, I mean, there's a decent hub there. You have Woodbridge. Then you have two large stations, Metuchen and Fairless Hills. So you're kind of restricting yourself there. There's a whole lot of density of hubs in the Northeast. So you're looking at, you have Middletown, you have New Haven, you have Westport, you have Hartford, you have Metuchen, Woodbridge, Lehigh, Hagerstown. I'm missing one. Brenningsville. What else am I missing up there? Uh, Binghamton, Syracuse. Um,
What's
is
one?
there
One in South Maine.
Portland?
Uh,
But Portland's a station. But I mean, so there's you're if you're just looking at New Jersey, you're kind of limiting yourself. So I would definitely make sure you widen yourself up. Like I would be willing. I mean, if you're in New Jersey, um, I'd be open-minded to going about 5 hour drive away, and that opens up to a lot. So like you can go as far down as like Hagerstown in Maryland. And you can get into Lehigh in Pennsylvania. And Lehigh, there's a lot of stuff in Lehigh and between like King of Prussia, Scranton, um, what is it called? New Brunswick, East Brunswick. So there's a lot of stuff down there. But I will say that Linehaul, there's not a, I mean, there's only 1,700 of us. So as opposed to um,
P&D.
Indeed, that there's what, 5,500, 6,000 P&D contractors. There's only 1,700 of us line haul. So if you think about it that way, and then at any one point in time, there might be a total of 10% of the line haul contractors who are thinking about selling. And the guys who actually list is probably, I mean, what's the addressable market? Maybe 5%. So there might be a total of 50 runs on the market at any one point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 50 to 100, but and I think the other important thing is that in P&D and several of the others, there's a lot of organic growth that happens whether you want to or not. So people can get bigger than they want to be without any kind of control over it. A lot of the growth in line haul is controlled. And so some people don't get any bigger. They don't ever get larger than they want to be. And so they don't have any feelings of, hey, I've gotten too big. I need to sell off a piece of my business, which is what we see often in P&D of selling a zip code or one of your contracts. That still happens in line haul, but there are plenty of contractors that do 5 runs for decades. So there's that
And
kind of feeling restricts the number of listings that
and
they.
I will say this, that you typically, and rightly or wrongly, and maybe Josh has a different opinion about this, you generally don't see the smaller operations go for sale with a broker. A lot of those are handshake deals done between two contractors. Like I bought 4 runs, from a contractor who kind of who hit me up in a safety meeting and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling these. I know you're right. I know that they would fit right into your business here in this station. Do you want?" Actually, I'll take it back. I was talking to a guy this morning. He called me up asking me how to navigate something in my ground biz, and I explained it to him, and he's like, and then I said, "Hey, how's your business in Shenandoah Valley going?" He's like, "You know what? I'm thinking about selling it."
Yeah.
And then that began a conversation. Now we agree that what he was wanting to sell it for and what I was willing to pay for it was not right. But once you get into the business, for some reason, a lot of the smaller, like 1 to 3, 3 truck runs or 4 truck runs, I would say about 4 trucks, they'll get done like as a handshake. Now, if you're looking to like if I was looking to peel off my Memphis business, which is 30,000 miles a week, I'm going to hit up Josh. Actually, I'm not going to hit up Josh. I'm going to go hit up Butch and say, "Hey, Butch, can you put a value on 30,000 miles a week?
Yeah.
It's 6 dedicated team runs, 4 dedicated solos, and tell me what you think the right value is, and can you market it? Because that's too big of a transaction to get done on a handshake, and there's going to be more due diligence needed. But like somebody coming up and say, "Hey, I'll trade you my," I mean, this happens more often than you think. "I'll trade you my Chicago for your Champagne."
Yeah.
Be like, the guy will be like, "Huh, you're going to offer me like 20 more miles at round trip to go to Chicago? You want to do this trade straight up?" Sure, I'll do that, or no, I'm not going to do that. I have no desire to drive into Chicago. You know what the traffic's like?
Yeah.
So you'll get stuff like that happen. So like once you get in, um, so yeah, it's kind of challenging. Like, I live in Denver. My operations are in Cincinnati, Memphis, Tennessee, and Olive Branch, Mississippi. Like, I mean, you can be further away from your business than you think.
Yeah.
But it's a slog. It took me. I started being interested in line haul in October of 2017 or 18, and I bought my first run, 6 months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
It, I regularly say that the first step is the hardest step in line haul. And just like you said, a lot of things happen that you wouldn't even know the transactions exist until you're in there.
Yeah.
And
Then you get like crazy stuff where like a terminal manager would be like, I need somebody to run this.
yeah,
It's not going to go on your A1, but I need somebody to run this. I'm like, well, why won't you put it on my A1? Don't ask those questions. Do you want to run this for me or not? Sure, I'll run it for you. And then
yeah,
you're doing like miles off the grid.
yeah,
It's not on your A1. It's not building any of your equity, but it's generating revenue. So,
yeah. And John, I see your kind of second question there is recommendations besides just continuously checking listings. I think what you said there about improving your education is the most important, and just really outlining and deciding what for you are, the deal breakers. Like what is a distance you can justify, what's not, what's the type of operation that you can justify, teams versus solos, dedicated versus unassigned. Be really clear with as much of that as you can, so that when the listings come, that you know the ones to jump after and try to move quickly on. The other thing I would say, if you're talking specifically about our listings, if you aren't a part of our consulting program, all of our listings do go to consulting clients before they go to the public. So there are some listings that will go to consulting clients before they ever come public. So that is part of it too. And the reason for that is the sellers want to work with the educated consulting buyers ideally. And so it smooths the process, speeds things up. So if that is a step that you can take. And obviously there's a ton of training and education that comes with those programs too. So I can answer any questions on that,
and
but
then
thinking about it right.
I think the other thing is to go to the events. So go to Houston. I know that's a long trip from New Jersey. I'm not sure where in New Jersey you are, but that's a decent trip. Definitely go to the expo in Nashville. There's a couple other trade shows. You're not going to be able to get into the Miami or the Orlando Summit from FedEx because you have to be a contractor. But there is another event called the Linehaul Summit. So, but these are opportunities where you're going to get to network with other contractors. And like I said, there is a lot of deals that get done at these things.
Yeah.
So, you go to Houston, you're going to get probably there's probably 70 line haul TSPs in the Houston area. And you're going to get guys who come down from Dallas. I actually know, I was just talking to Josh. There's a contractor coming down. There's one guy coming down from Arkansas, another guy coming from Missouri, and a guy coming from Ohio that I already know are coming down to the Houston event. So there'll be opportunities for you to meet contractors. Can I guarantee that it's going to come from Jersey? No. Um, I will say that. Um, I've heard anecdotally that Jersey can be a challenge. Woodbridge can be a challenging hub to break into.
Bridge is a
Um,
challenge, I would say. Those are ones that are worth buying just to get in, because there's very few that come live in Woodbridge. Yeah.
Woodbridge is one of those. So what's attractive about Woodbridge is that it's the major port of embarkation in the United States for FedEx. So where most of the freight comes into the United States from overseas is Woodbridge, Rialto in California. So you have the dual hubs of Rialto and Chino. In New Jersey, you actually have Woodbridge, Metuchen, and now this new station that they just opened up called Fairless Hills. And then the last point is Savannah, which is North Savannah, West Savannah, South Savannah, and Savannah. And then supposedly they're opening up another station there too. So that's where you get a lot of the growth right now is coming from those areas, specifically Savannah. That being said, I'm in Cincinnati, Mississippi, and Olive Branch, and I've grown from 4 trucks to 36 trucks. And I don't really have any interest in going to New Jersey. I don't want to go. As much as I like going to visit New York City, I don't want to travel to New York that
Yeah.
often. So I don't really want to fly into Newark. So nothing against New Jersey. I'm good with the Midwest in the Mason-Dixon line.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions. So everyone, thank you for being here today, for coming to listen and ask your questions. And Alex, thank you for being here to provide that insight. And we will see you all next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
See ya.